During a quick sync with the CEO's son, my phone buzzed face down on the glass table. I glanced at the notification bar as I reached for my coffee. Unknown number? One line. Don't react. He is recording you. I kept my hand steady. No flinch, no breath caught in my throat. I'm Lauren, product director. 15 years into building the kind of resilience that doesn't blink when knives come wrapped in compliments. The conference room hummed with the polite white noise of the air system, the scent of lemongrass cleaner and fresh toner. He lounged in the chair opposite me like it was a throne he'd inherited. Elbows wide, watch face tilted toward me, a faint red dot pulsing along the bezel like a heartbeat. Relax, he said, smirking. This is just a temperature check. He didn't open a laptop. He didn't bring notes. He adjusted his cufflinks and placed his phone vertically against a water carafe, camera side angled up. The light glare on the screen hid everything except the tiny circle at the top. A new pen sat on the table. Shiny, branded, placed exactly between us like a centerpiece. The cap had a pinhole. I poured water, as if my attention lived somewhere else. I've taught younger managers how to observe. Noise, placement, posture. The pen didn't belong to our office kits. The watch's mic port was uncovered. The phone was angled to capture my face, not his. And the text, whoever sent it, had either saved me or wanted to see if I could save myself. He smiled in the way men do when they assume you need them. Lauren, I hear you're strong-willed. A pause, inviting me to fill it. I didn't. Silence is a tool, a scalpel if you hold it without shaking. I'm thorough, I said, matching the temperature of the room. It keeps our clients. He leaned in like we were co-conspirators, lowering his voice. I also hear you've been difficult with transitions. Resistance to change. The word hovered in the air between us. Code 4, you didn't applaud when I cut head count to impress Dad. A tap vibrated through the table, his finger against the phone. The camera lens caught a flare of light. The pen glinted. I imagined the version of me they wanted to capture. Defensive, emotional, unprofessional. Clip a sentence, splice a sigh, title it Insubordination. Easy to edit a villain when you already wrote the script. Change goes faster when it's rational, I answered, folding my hands. We can talk through the rationale. He grinned wider like I'd stepped into a trap. Great. Let's talk about why you refused to ship V4.2 last week. I had emails, risk reports, a QA list as long as a receipt, security flags on the payment module that would have torched us in the press. He knew it. But what mattered today wasn't truth. It was tape. I pictured chopped sound bites, refused ship last week. I pictured my jaw clenched, brows drawn, a woman who couldn't collaborate. I documented my reasons in the release notes. I said evenly, "Do you have them pulled up?" He blinked. No laptop. No notes. Let's stay high level. I stayed quiet, counting the seconds. People who expect your panic get nervous when they don't get it. He shifted. The watch's red dot flashed again. My phone buzzed in my lap. Don't give him adjectives, only facts. The unknown number again. My pulse chased itself, then slowed. Whoever this was knew the game. He drummed his fingers. Look, you've done a lot here. But we're entering a new era. I need leaders who can be aligned. Aligned with what? I asked. With me. He said it without a smile now. The room felt smaller. I thought of my team. Sleepless nights, sticky notes, laughter over cold pizza. Thought of all the people his pivot would discard like receipts. He raised his phone. Just checking the time, he said, angling it, the lens catching my reflection. So, are you willing to commit to my timeline and the cultural changes I'm implementing? A perfect close-ended question. No context, no constraints, yes or no, and either answer would hang me in the edit. I reached for the branded pen and turned it idly between my fingers, as if curious about the logo. The cap clicked once. Inside, something rattled. Too heavy for ink, too loose for spring. I set it down gently, face toward me. I commit to any timeline that doesn't compromise our client's financial data, I said, and to any cultural change that doesn't punish integrity. He let the silence stretch, then chuckled without warmth. You're principled. Fact, I said, not adjective. A tiny crease appeared between his eyebrows. He wasn't getting what he came for. He pivoted. Okay then. Off the record, he pointed at the phone and almost theatrically locked the screen. The watch's dot still pulsed. Lauren, people say you've been hard on certain colleagues. Some feel unsafe raising ideas. That's not our vibe. The word unsafe landed like a grenade. It's HR's favorite ghost. Impossible to hold. Devastating to chase. Frame a woman as unsafe and watch her drown trying to disprove a shadow. Which colleagues? I asked. I don't name names, he said, performing benevolence. I protect my people. Then protect them with specifics, I replied. Dates, incidents, witnesses. He stared, then smiled again. Bigger, brighter, faker. We're good here. We weren't, but I nodded, calm like a clear lake that hides a riptide. He stood, shaking my hand too long, the watch angled at my wrist. Great energy, he said. Let's keep this between us. No need to loop in Dad yet. He left the pen behind. In the hallway, chatter swelled and the world felt normal again, fluorescent and busy. I walked to my desk the long way, passing the framed mission statement, "We build trust," and tried not to laugh. The unknown number texted once more. Conference room, ceiling grill. Corner camera, do not touch the pen. Too late. I slid the pen into an envelope and labeled it with the meeting time, then drafted an email to myself with bullet points of everything he'd asked and everything I'd said. Facts only. Attach the envelope photo. Breathe. At 4:12 p.m., my phone began to vibrate across the desk. Unknown numbers. No voicemail. Again. A swarm. By 5:03 p.m., 83 missed calls. The first thing I did when I got home that night was lock the door and place the pen on my kitchen counter like it was a live wire. I poured myself a glass of water, but my hands shook too much to drink. 83 missed calls from an unknown number. No messages, no voicemails. Just the repeated demand to answer. I hadn't. Something told me the silence was safer. I kept staring at the pen. It looked harmless enough. Just a black branded corporate pen, the kind they hand out at trade shows. But inside it, I'd felt something shift, something metallic. And the text had warned me. Do not touch the pen. Too late. I needed proof. I pulled out a small toolkit I used for fixing eyeglasses and carefully pried off the cap. A thin wire, coiled and taped, slipped out, attached to a tiny chip smaller than a fingernail. My breath caught. It wasn't just a pen. It was a microphone. I leaned back against the counter, my pulse in my throat. Whoever texted me had been right. But then, who were they? A whistleblower? A colleague who pitied me? Or maybe someone playing a deeper game? I didn't know. What I did know was that the CEO's son had planted surveillance equipment in a company meeting and was trying to bait me into saying something he could twist. I slid the chip into a plastic sandwich bag and tucked it inside a cookie tin high in the cupboard, away from curious eyes. Then I powered off my phone completely. Those 83 calls rattled me more than the microphone. Not knowing why someone was so desperate to reach me felt worse than knowing I'd been recorded. Sleep that night was impossible. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the meeting in my head. His smirk, his choice of words, The way he kept tapping the phone screen. Unsafe. That word echoed the loudest. They weren't just trying to frame me for insubordination. They were building a case that I was unstable, unfit for leadership. And with his father as CEO, it wouldn't take much to bury me. The next morning, I arrived at the office earlier than usual. My colleagues trickled in with coffee cups and tired smiles, unaware of the storm brewing above their heads. I opened my laptop, plugged in my headphones, and started typing notes about the meeting. Every detail mattered. Placement of objects. His phrasing. The text messages. The pen. I even described the faint pulse on his watch because in court, or in HR, those small details could matter. Around 9:30, my manager, Helen, walked by. She paused at my desk. "Rough night?" she asked gently. I forced a smile. "Didn't sleep much." She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Just be careful around Ryan." Ryan, the CEO's son, so I wasn't imagining it. She didn't elaborate, but her tone carried weight. My stomach tightened. Maybe she knew more than she could say aloud. By noon, an email hit my inbox. Subject: feedback session follow-up. It was from Ryan. He thanked me for my time and openness, then wrote a line that chilled me. "I appreciate your honesty about being resistant to leadership change. Let's keep building from there." I hadn't said that, not even close, but it was exactly the kind of admission that could be twisted in a performance review. My throat went dry. He was already rewriting the narrative. At lunch, I sat in my car in the parking lot, phone turned back on, scrolling through the unknown calls, all from the same number. I hesitated, then dialed it. Straight to voicemail. No greeting, no name, just the robotic operator. I hung up, exhaling hard. Who sends you a warning like that, then disappears? When I returned to my desk, there was an envelope waiting for me. No name, no handwriting on the outside. Just the company's internal mail sticker. I glanced around, heart pounding, then slid it open under the desk. Inside was a single photo. A screenshot, grainy but clear enough. Me in the conference room yesterday, sitting across from Ryan. His phone angled, lens glinting, the pen perfectly centered between us. At the bottom corner, a timestamp. Someone had access to the recordings, and they were sending them to me. I stuffed the photo back into the envelope, my palms sweating. If they had access, it meant either someone inside his circle was turning against him, or they wanted me to know just how deep the surveillance went. That afternoon, I tried to focus on spreadsheets, but every click of my mouse sounded like a gunshot in my ears. Every laugh in the hallway made me wonder if they were laughing at me. I checked my email compulsively, terrified another follow-up would arrive twisting words I hadn't said. By the time I drove home, exhaustion clung to me like a second skin. I parked in the driveway, shut off the engine, and sat in silence. The text, the pen, the photo, the 83 missed calls, it all connected, but the picture wasn't clear yet. I carried my bag inside and noticed something strange. The cookie tin where I'd hidden the chip wasn't in the cupboard. It sat on the counter, lid ajar. I froze. I lived alone. And suddenly I wasn't sure if the real danger was in the office or already inside my home. I didn't move for a full minute. The cookie tin sat on my counter, lid tilted like it had been interrupted mid-crime. I replayed last night. Cupboard, top shelf, tin tucked behind cake pans. I live alone. I don't have a cleaner. My landlord only enters for scheduled work, and there hadn't been any. I set my bag down quietly, as if the apartment might answer back. I checked the door. The chain was in place. The deadbolt turned cleanly, but the strike plate had a thin curl of metal shaved along the screw. Fresh, bright. I crouched and ran a finger over it. The scrape was new. I didn't call 911. I took photos. I put the pen, the chip, the tin, and the envelope from internal mail into separate zip bags, wrote the date and time in Sharpie, and dropped them in my freezer. A lawyer once told me cold, dry storage helps with latent prints and slows degradation. I don't know if that's true. It felt like doing something that wasn't panic. My phone lit the counter. Unknown again. I let it ring out. A text arrived. Don't call from home Wi-Fi. They monitor it. Monitor how? My ISP account is mine. Unless my router's default password? No, I changed it the week I moved in. Still, the text made the hair lift on my arms. I grabbed my keys and walked back out, locking the door like it could lock out the feeling. I drove to a cafe a few blocks away and sat where I could see both the entrance and the street. I switched off Wi-Fi, turned on data, and opened a new note. Everything that had happened, in order, in facts. Meeting setup, objects on table, his phrases, the follow-up email that put words in my mouth, the internal photo. I exported the note as a PDF and sent it to a new, clean email I created on the walk over. Then I printed the same list at the cafe kiosk, stapled it, and slid it into my bag. The message pinged again. If you summarize the meeting in an email, CC HR and your manager. Subject: clarification of yesterday's discussion. Only facts. No adjectives. I stared at the screen. Whoever this was, they knew corporate. Or they wanted me busy while someone else moved. Either way, the advice fit what my gut already said. Paper trail first. Feelings later. Back at the office the next morning, I wrote the email. I listed each question he'd asked, each answer I gave, the artifacts on the table, the phone's placement, his use of the word unsafe. I CC'd Helen in the HR general inbox. I attached my release note on version 4.2 and the security findings. I read it twice for adjectives, deleted the word smirk, and hit send. 10 minutes later, my calendar bloomed with a check-in from HR for the next day. No agenda, just the phrase supportive conversation. If you've worked long enough, you learn the vocabulary of ambush. Slack flashed on my screen. A message in our team channel posted from my account tagging the engineers. Ignore Ryan's timeline. We ship when I say so. The words stung because they were exactly the caricature he'd want. Power drunk, insubordinate, arrogant. I didn't type. I didn't delete. I took a screenshot, then another with the message hover showing the posting IP. I pinged Sam in IT, who owes me 3 favors and hates Ryan on principle. Me. Was my account accessed this morning? Sam. You on the exec floor Wi-Fi at 8:20? Me. No. 3 dots. Then, Logan token from boardroom guest. That SSID isn't public. Also odd, your session key was reset server side 5 minutes earlier. That's an admin action. Who's admin? He didn't answer for a beat. Originated from the network closet by the executive suite. You didn't hear that from me. I grabbed my notebook. Facts only. I wrote down the SSID, the time, the admin reset, Sam's exact phrases. My hands didn't shake this time. At noon, Helen appeared at my desk and asked if I had a minute. Her face looked like someone holding 2 truths they can't say out loud. We walked to a stairwell. No cameras, just concrete and the distant hum of vents. I can't advise you, she said softly, but document everything. And Lauren, don't be alone in meetings with him again. Why? She glanced at the door. Because I saw a draft of something I wasn't supposed to see. You're being positioned as non-collaborative and destabilizing. She swallowed. They're collecting. On what timeline? Soon. I nodded because there was nothing else to do that wouldn't make her part of the story she couldn't escape. On my way home that evening, the landlord called back. I told him about the strike plate and asked if any maintenance had been scheduled. He sounded genuinely confused. No vendors this week, Lauren. You're on a do not enter flag since March. He paused. You didn't give a key to your boyfriend? I don't have one. Okay. I'll pull the exterior camera. We only catch the stoop, not your door. An hour later, he texted a still image. A person in a generic maintenance jacket, head down, carrying a tote, entering the front door behind a resident who didn't look. No logo I recognized. The tote's side pocket held a slender pouch about the length of a pen. My phone buzzed again. The unknown number. Do not confront him or his father. Not yet. Bring the pen to a public place. Ask a chain pharmacy to bag it as a found item and staple the receipt to the bag. Then put that bag in your freezer. Why? I typed. Chain of custody. You need to be boringly credible. I followed the instructions. The pharmacy cashier didn't look twice. Back home, I slid the stapled bag beside the envelope of photos and shut the freezer like it could keep me from unraveling. My email pinged. A new invite from Ryan. Performance alignment. Mandatory. The location line read, Boardroom 4A. Recorded. Another text arrived, almost on top of it. You're not paranoid. Check the back of your router. I picked up the router like it was a sleeping animal. Dust ring on the shelf, 2 Ethernet cables, power brick, and, on the back, something I hadn't noticed before. A tiny USB stick with no logo, the kind of anonymous white plastic you buy in bulk. My stomach dropped. Most home routers have a USB port for storage or cellular backup. I'd never used mine. I didn't pull it out. I took photos from every angle, wrote the date on a sticky note and stuck it in the frame, then opened my laptop on mobile hotspot, not Wi-Fi. I typed the router's local address, logged in, and opened the status page. There it was. USB WAN, active. A secondary internet connection, signal bars, a carrier name, remote management enabled, log showing successful admin logins I hadn't made. My phone buzzed. Unknown. Don't disable it yet. Photograph every settings screen. System log. MAC lists. Then power the router off at the wall and bag the USB device. I did exactly that. Photos, screen recordings, a PDF printout of the system log. Then I powered the unit down, put on dish gloves, ridiculous, but it made me feel careful, and slid the USB stick into a fresh zip bag. I drove back to the same pharmacy, told the same board cashier I'd found it outside, and asked them to bag and staple a receipt again. Chain of custody for dummies. Back home, I put it in the freezer with the pen and the envelope. Sleep came in fragments. Every creak was a footstep, every car engine a watcher. I turned the router back on but left Wi-Fi disabled and used my phone's hotspot. Paranoid? Maybe. But the little white stick had answered a bigger question. Whoever had been inside my apartment didn't just want to scare me. They wanted access. Quiet and constant. Morning brought the HR supportive conversation. I arrived early and asked Helen to walk me in. She hesitated in the doorway, then nodded and took a seat beside me. 2 HR people on the other side of the small table, smiling in the way people do when they're about to read from a script. We want to understand how best to support you, the lead said, then glanced at a folder with my name on it. We've received feedback about your style. I kept my hands flat. Before we begin, is this meeting investigatory or disciplinary? And is it being recorded? A flicker between them. No, not disciplinary, she said. And no, not recorded. Then I'd like a written agenda, I said, and to receive any allegations in writing so I can respond accurately. Also, I'll be taking notes, and I'll need a copy of anything you rely on. Another flicker. The second HR rep smiled tighter. This is just a check-in. Great, I said. Then I'll start by clarifying yesterday's discussion with Ryan. I handed over the email I'd sent, the release notes, the security findings for version 4.2. Fax only. Also, for your awareness, a device was left in a meeting. It appears to record audio. I've preserved it. They didn't touch the paper. We can route this through proper channels, the lead said. In the meantime, several colleagues have reported feeling unsafe raising ideas with you. Which colleagues? I asked. We don't disclose names. Then I'm asking for dates, incidents, and witnesses, I said. Specifics. I can't correct what I can't see. A pause. The second rep flipped a page. There was also a Slack message from your account instructing engineers to ignore leadership timelines. I saw that, I said. Here's a screenshot capturing the posting IP and a note from IT indicating my session key was reset from an admin console minutes before. I'm asking for an audit and to have my account placed on watch. Helen shifted beside me, the slightest movement, like a breath she could finally release. The lead HR rep took the paper this time. We'll look into it, she said. Please confirm in writing, I replied, and copy legal. Also, any future meetings about my performance should be scheduled with notice and a stated agenda. If we move into disciplinary territory, I'll need to bring counsel. They nodded, but their eyes said this wasn't the conversation they'd planned. When we stood, the second rep offered a soft olive branch. We appreciate your professionalism. It sounded like a line she believed, not one she was allowed to say aloud. Back at my desk, a calendar invite popped up from Ryan. Performance alignment, boardroom 4A, recorded. The description was empty. I declined with a single sentence. I'll attend once HR provides an agenda and confirms participants. Please send the recording policy and distribution process I CC'd HR. He replied within minutes. No need for HR, this is informal. Helen appeared at my chair, jaw set. Don't go, she said quietly. He's been doing one-on-ones without HR. People leave those meetings worse. I'm not going, I said. Not without a paper trail. My phone buzzed. Unknown. Good. Keep everything in email. If they insist, ask for a conference room with windows and a neutral HR recorder. Bring a witness. Own device off. Face down. Ask for a copy. Who are you? I typed. The dots pulsed, stopped, returned. Someone who lost more than a job here. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Whoever they weren't guessing. They were remembering. On my way home, the landlord texted another still image from the building cam. Same jacket, same tote, different day. The person followed a neighbor in again, head turned away from the lens. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I didn't want to be the kind of person who saw ghosts. I wanted the kind of evidence that made ghosts visible to everyone else. At home, I unplugged the router, put it and the power brick into a box, labeled it, and slid it into a closet. I set up a new travel hotspot I could shut off with a button and move my laptop to the kitchen table where I could see the front door. I wrote everything into a timeline, attached photos, logs, and receipts, and sent the bundle to a new folder labeled Counsel in my clean email. Then I drafted one more message. Short, factual, impossible to ignore. To Human Resources and Legal, a device resembling an audio recorder was introduced into a meeting by a senior employee. A separate cellular device was discovered attached to my home router. Both are preserved. Please advise on the company's policy regarding recording, remote access, and retaliation. I am willing to cooperate fully in an investigation. I hit send and watched the cursor blink, steady as a heartbeat. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. I didn't trust silence anymore. The reply from HR came faster than I expected. 2 lines. We acknowledge receipt of your concerns. Please do not discuss this matter further until we review internally. Translation. Stall. By then, I'd learned to read between the lines. HR didn't move quickly unless the CEO forced them. And Ryan was the CEO's son. If they were stalling, it meant he was still protected. For now. I didn't feel safe waiting. I couldn't sit in my apartment with freezer bags of evidence like a detective in exile. So I called a lawyer, a woman I found through a local employment advocacy group. I forwarded everything. The meeting notes, the pen, The router screenshots, the Slack hack, the HR exchange. She called me back within hours. "Lauren," she said, calm but sharp, "what you have isn't paranoia. It's retaliation. It's surveillance. It's grounds for both a civil claim and whistleblower protection. But first, you need to protect yourself from being fired before you can fight." "How?" "Stay predictable. Attend work, document everything. And if you're pressured into a meeting again, ask to record it yourself. If they refuse, note it in writing. Don't raise your voice. Don't give them tape they can twist." I exhaled, a sound that felt like steel leaving my lungs. "So I wait?" "You wait," she said, "and then you strike in public." That night, my phone buzzed again with a text from the unknown number. "You're not alone. We tried to warn you. Don't let him corner you. Watch for the Friday town hall. He'll go after you there." I froze. The town hall. Every quarter, the CEO gathered the whole company in the auditorium. Ryan had been edging closer to the spotlight, positioning himself as the heir. If he wanted to discredit me, what better stage than one with 300 witnesses? Friday came like a storm cloud. I walked into the auditorium, notebook in hand, phone in airplane mode. Ryan stood near the stage in a tailored suit, smile wide, voice loud enough to carry. My stomach knotted. The CEO spoke first, praising growth and resilience. Then Ryan took the microphone. He clicked to a slide titled, "Culture of Resistance." My name appeared in a bullet point, highlighted in red. Gasps rippled through the rows. He launched into a speech about leadership, holding back innovation, about toxic resistance to change. He didn't say Lauren again, but everyone could see the slide. My pulse hammered. This was it. When he finished, the CEO clapped him on the back. "Thank you, Ryan." Strong words. Then, almost as an afterthought, "Lauren, do you want to respond?" The spotlight swung like a blade. My legs shook as I walked to the front. I didn't take the mic. I pulled a folder from my bag and handed it to the moderator. "These are logs, emails, and evidence of recording devices placed in meetings. I ask that they be displayed here so everyone can see the context." The moderator hesitated, but the CEO nodded, curious. The projector flickered. A photo appeared. Ryan's phone on the conference table, lens pointed at me, timestamp clear. Another slide. The Slack message tagged to my account with IT's note showing the login came from boardroom guest. Murmurs filled the air. I kept my voice steady. Facts, not adjectives. A recording device and a pen. Unauthorized access to my router. Messages sent from my account without my knowledge. Attempts to frame me as unsafe. All documented, preserved, and now filed with counsel, Ryan tried to laugh. This is ridiculous. But then Helen stood from her seat near the back. Her voice carried. I saw the draft. I saw the setup. She's telling the truth. Silence fell heavier than any gavel. The CEO's face tightened, red creeping up his neck. Ryan sputtered, but the screen behind him betrayed him more than I ever could. The whispers grew into a low roar, employees exchanging looks that said everything. The golden sun had crossed a line. I walked off the stage without waiting for applause. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A new text. Now you've turned on the lights. Don't look back. That evening, HR called me in. The tone was different. They spoke of serious allegations, external counsel, and suspension pending investigation. Not mine, Ryan's. I answered their questions calmly, sticking to facts. My lawyer sat beside me, expression unreadable. By Monday, Ryan's name was off the org chart. The CEO issued a memo about protecting integrity and trust. It read like damage control, but it was the first acknowledgement that I wasn't invisible. At home, I pulled the frozen bags from the freezer and stacked them in a box for my lawyer. The evidence that had weighed me down was finally out of my hands. I poured tea, sat on the couch, and let the quiet settle. For the first time in weeks, silence felt like mine again. The message I wanted to hold on to wasn't about revenge, though part of me savored it. It was about survival. About not letting someone else write my story in edited clips and false accusations. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. The truth needs receipts. And silence, when it's chosen, is power.